Hi everyone, welcome to this short video, hopefully, on how to export your maps from Designer, Substance Designer, and put them into Blender. So there's a couple of key stages here that we need to pay attention to try and get the best out of what we're making, because you're putting a lot of work into making these graphs and making these materials, and you want to be able to show them off to the best that you can. So I'm going to put a video together. If you've got any more questions or anything, just ask, just get in touch and ask as per usual. So I've got my graph, and as we know, the graph here all feeds into our base material. So this is the container for our material. It has our core properties, and it deals with our maps and our outputs. And this material that I've made is this little kind of marble tile type thing. It's got like a couple of tiles missing on it. I think I linked the tutorial somewhere for this, but again, let me know if you want it. I'll try and find it. It was a YouTube one. If you YouTube like PBR marble tile, you'll probably find it. It's a pretty good one because it deals with kind of these like checkered and shaped type nodes, and it covers masking, so it's pretty good. So here, after my material node, I have these outputs, and this is each of these is one of the maps that I'm going to do. You can see the resolution, so I've got 2K maps on at the moment, and this is my base color, my normals, roughness, metallic, ambient occlusion, and height. And I want to export all of those. If you don't have these, because they're not necessarily automatically generated, they're pretty easy to generate. You just need to click on your materials, you need to right click, and you go to create, and you do create output nodes. And it's going to say, do you want to create nodes for hidden connections? Now, this refers to the ones here that you do not have user-defined maps for. So you sort of say, well, yes, no, yes, no. I'm going to say no, because why not? And as you can see here, I've got my base color, normals, roughness, metallic, ambient occlusion, and height back again. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to my graph on the left here, and I'm going to you can see them here, you can see each individual one. I'm going to right click where it says new graph, and I'm going to do export outputs as bitmaps. It's going to pop up. That's going to give me a destination. Desktop will do for now, and you can select which ones you want to export and which format. I'm just going to do raw, and then exporting in background, export done, so I can close that now. And let's switch over to Blender. Now, you don't need a complicated shape for any of this. I'm just going to scale this right down so it looks kind of like a floor, because it's a marble tile texture, so kind of makes sense. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this. I'm going to go over to shading, and here is where we deal with the materials for this object. And you can see here we have what's called a principal BSDF, and much like how in Substance Designer this material node held the inputs and outputs of our material, in Blender this also handles the inputs and then the final output of our material. And we can see here that some of the names match some of the names that we see in Substance Designer, like base color, metallic, roughness, and normals. So what we're going to do is we're just going to Shift A, and we're going to search for image texture. I'm going to add an image texture, open. I'm going to go to my desktop, marble tile maps, and I'm going to find base color. That's the first one I'm going to do. It doesn't really matter which order you do these in. And I've got the base color here, and I'm just going to connect it to base color. I can already see there that that I'm getting my image through. Right? So it doesn't quite look how we want it. We'll deal with that in a minute, but it at least is connecting. So now what we need to do is we just need to do that kind of process again, really. Chuck another one in. We're going to open this again. We're going to go for metallic. We're going to connect that to the metalness of it. And I'm going to throw another one in here. And I'm going to go to roughness. So it's kind of, I mean, it doesn't, Blender's great, but it doesn't handle the nodes in as elegantly as Designer, that's for sure. So I'm going to connect that to roughness there. That's going to completely remove those values. So I can no longer edit those values in the same way I can, because the map is controlling that. And I can change the way in which you know, that image is projected onto iShape if I wanted to. And the last one I'm going to add for now is on normals. Now you'll notice that unlike the other maps, the normal map is it's not black and white, right? It's kind of blue to purple. It's a little bit different, and we don't have a yellow color. So image textures, they output yellow connections, and we don't really have a yellow connection. We have this purple connection. So what we're going to do is we're just going to search for one more. We're going to say normal and normal map, and we're going to say that our color is our the image texture is going to control the color for our normal map, and then the output for the normals is going to connect to the normals. And out of all of them, I think that this one is probably going to give you the biggest visual difference as you add it. So if I take that away, you can kind of see the difference in it. If you want to add some kind of deformation on the Z plane of this, so it kind of looks good, but it's still really flat, you can use your roughness or your height. We already used roughness, so we'll use height for this one. So your height from Substance Designer, and we're just going to plug that straight into the displacement of this, and that will give it some form of displacement kind of qualities. Or if you want, you can go to add a displacement modifier, and in here it will ask you if you want to add a texture, and you will be able to add the image texture for your height. Remember that if you want any form of displacement on a plane, you need more vertices, so you will also need to add a subdivision modifier. Let's just apply that to give it kind of very slight deformation. And that's really you know, the connections that you need. I know at first glance that looks quite scary, but it's kind of just matching the names to the names. The tricky bits are knowing to put this in. You can still sort of, you know, play around with the specular on some of this, emission, things like that. And if you want to change the tiling of this, you can just go to the UVs, press A to select all of those, and S, and I'm just going to scale them up. You can't see that because I've not got that on. And as I scale this up and down, there's probably a different way of doing this in Blender, but you know, it's not broke. That's good enough for this tutorial, that's for sure. we can see that. Now, one of the things to make sure that you do is make sure that you are using a proper PBR engine. So Blender's kind of really good at getting this reflection to work even in a non-PBR setting or viewport, whatever you want to call it. Just going to grab that and bring that down and see if we can move that. And there's no real interaction with our material at this point. Let me just put that above there. There we go. That'd be easier, wouldn't it? So as I move this, we can't see that interaction. That's how you know that there's no real ray tracing going on. There's no real physics-based rendering happening. So what you can do is you can chuck it into the viewport shading. That will give you a slightly better idea of what's happening, but again, it's not really PBR until you go to the render engine and you actually switch over to Cycles. So Cycles uses PBR materials in the sense that the maps that we put in here all inform the render engine of the way in which light should react with our material, the surface of our material. So we have all the information here in these maps. If we don't put the right render engine on, then that information is not used. It's completely pointless. So make sure that you use Cycles. I know that Cycles can take a long time, especially on home computers. Make sure if you're somewhere with much better GPU, make sure you switch the device over to GPU, and then as we see, when we grab this light, we can see that it actually responds much better to the material, and we can see that rendering, as we kind of move that, goes lighter and darker and whatnot. And then that's it really, that's and then again, when you might want to just come to edit preferences, system, CUDA, and just make sure that your GPU is on so that you're using your GPU when you render. So that's kind of what it looks like when it's done. That's a PBR material in Blender. I hope this tutorial was helpful. If not, let me know if I need to make changes or if there's anything else that you're unsure of. Just ask.